Uh, I've come close to getting to that point, but never quite to the extent that he does.
You never took a hike?
No, I never did. I felt like it a couple of times.
Howdy, folks. Today we're talking about George Strait, but unfortunately the news isn't all good. We'll dive into what's happening, how it's impacting the King of Country, and what this means for his legacy. If you want to stay updated on all things George Strait, be sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. Let's get into it. When you think of George Strait, you probably picture a cowboy hat, a crisp button-down, and a voice that sounds like pure Texas. He's the King of Country after all. But beyond the sold-out arenas, platinum records, and legendary career, George has a life full of passions that are just as impressive as his music. Let's start with something that won't surprise you: his love for ranching. Unlike some celebrities who buy a ranch just to say they have one, George Strait is the real deal. He owns a massive rocky ranch in Texas where he spends time away from the spotlight, riding horses and embracing that good old-fashioned cowboy lifestyle. He's been passionate about roping since his younger days, and it's not just for show. He's actually competed in team roping events. Imagine rolling up to a rodeo and realizing you're about to go head-to-head with George Strait. And speaking of pastimes, George isn't just about the cowboy life. He's also a big-time outdoorsman. When he's not on stage or working on a new song, he's out on the water, casting a line and soaking in the slow, simple moments. Fishing isn't just a hobby for him. It's a way to unwind and connect with nature. There's just something about being out on the open water, away from the noise, that keeps him coming back for more. Another thing he enjoys? Golf. Yep, George Strait is just as smooth on the fairway as he is on stage. He's been known to play in celebrity tournaments and charity events, and while he's humble about his skills, let's just say you wouldn't want to underestimate him in a friendly competition. Whether it's a casual round with friends or a high-profile game for a good cause, he enjoys the challenge and the laid-back fun that comes with it. But don't let his laid-back lifestyle fool you. George Strait is also a huge supporter of charitable causes. He's used his influence and wealth to give back in big ways, like funding scholarships for young students and supporting military families. He's even hosted countless benefit concerts, raising millions for those in need. For him, success isn't just about what you earn, it's about what you give back. And here's a fun fact: George Strait is a huge fan of rodeo culture, not just as a spectator, but as someone who's lived it. He's had a long-running connection with the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo, where he's performed and supported the event for years. It's one of the biggest rodeos in the country, and his love for the sport runs deep. He even helped launch the George Strait Team Roping Classic, one of the most prestigious roping competitions out there. At the end of the day, George Strait isn't about the flash and fame. He's about good horses, good music, and good times. He's proof that you can reach legendary status and still stay true to who you are. Whether he's roping cattle, casting a fishing line, or hitting the golf course, one thing's for sure: George Strait knows how to live life the cowboy way. But while George Strait's hobbies keep him busy, there's one thing that's always been at the center of his life: his family. For all the fame, fortune, and sold-out shows, George has always been a devoted husband, a loving father, and a man who values the simple things in life just as much as his legendary career. Let's talk about his love story, because if there's ever been a real-life country song about true love, it's George and Norma Strait. These two go way back, high school sweethearts who have been together for over 50 years. Yep, 5 decades of marriage in an industry where long-lasting relationships are rare. They tied the knot in 1971 in a small ceremony, proving that for them, love wasn't about grand gestures or Hollywood-style romance. It was about a deep, steady commitment that has lasted a lifetime. And if you ask George, he'll tell you that Norma has been his rock. Through the highs and lows, the tours, the fame, and the personal hardships, she's been by his side every step of the way. In fact, he once said that taking her on their first date was the greatest decision he ever made. Now, that's country music romance at its finest. But like any great love story, theirs hasn't been without heartbreak. In 1986, George and Norma faced an unimaginable tragedy when their 13-year-old daughter, Jennifer Strait, passed away in a car accident. It was a devastating loss, one that changed them forever. George, who has always been a private person, didn't talk much about his grief publicly, but those closest to him knew how deeply it affected him. Instead of letting the pain consume him, he channeled his love for Jennifer into something meaningful. He and Norma set up the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation, which helps children's charities in her honor. It was their way of keeping her memory alive while giving back to others. Through it all, their son Bubba Strait has also been a huge part of their lives. Bubba inherited his dad's love for the cowboy way of life. He's an accomplished team roper and even writes songs with his father. In fact, some of George's later hits were co-written by Bubba, making their bond even stronger. You can tell that family isn't just a part of George Strait's life. It's his foundation. And despite all his success, George and Norma have always managed to keep their lives humble and grounded. They never got caught up in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. No wild scandals, no front-page drama, just a solid, lasting marriage built on love, loyalty, and faith. Even now, with a career that spans decades, George chooses to spend most of his time at home, enjoying the quiet life with the woman he's loved since high school. While George Strait's personal life has been a testament to enduring love and resilience, even the king of country isn't immune to the challenges that come with time. Recently, fans have been buzzing with concern over reports that George has been experiencing some vocal issues. Yes, it's true. George himself has confirmed that he's facing a temporary hiccup with his voice. But before we let worry take the reins, let's hear it straight from George. He acknowledges that, given his age and the decades he's spent serenading us, encountering some vocal strain is only natural. He emphasizes that this is a temporary situation and asks fans not to blow it out of proportion. In his own reassuring words, "Problems with the voice sooner or later arise given my age, but this problem is temporary." It's worth noting that this isn't the first time George has faced such challenges. Back in 2010, during a performance in Kansas City, he had to cut his show short due to laryngitis. He managed to get through a couple of songs before his voice gave out, leading to the concert being rescheduled. So, while it's natural to be concerned, let's take a cue from George's own calm demeanor. He's taking this in stride, focusing on rest and recovery, and is confident that he'll be back to his legendary performances in no time. After all, if there's one thing we've learned about George Strait over the years, it's that he's as resilient as they come. In the meantime, let's keep the faith, send positive vibes his way, and maybe revisit some of his classic hits. Because, as George has shown us time and again, a little bump in the road won't keep a good cowboy down. While fans might be worried about George Strait's recent vocal issues, let's not forget one thing. This man has already secured his legacy. And not just with his music, but with an impressive fortune to back it up. If there were a ranking of the most financially successful country artists of all time, you can bet George Strait would be sitting comfortably at the top. But how exactly did he make his money? Let's break it down. First off, music has been his gold mine. With over 120 million records sold worldwide, George isn't just a country legend. He's one of the best-selling artists in history. And let's not forget those 60 numbers. One hits more than any other country artist ever. That means he's constantly raking in money from album sales, streaming, and radio play. Even if he never recorded another song again, those royalty checks would keep rolling in. Then, there's his live performances. And this is where things get really wild. George doesn't just put on concerts, he sells out entire stadiums. His Cowboy Rides Away tour alone pulled in $99 million, and that was supposed to be his farewell tour. But let's be honest, George never fully left. He still does massive one-off shows, and in 2024, he set a record for the largest ticketed concert in U.S. history, with over 110,000 fans packing into Kyle Field in College Station, Texas. If that's what retirement looks like, sign me up. And while music is his bread and butter, George has also been smart with his money. He's not flashy. He's not out here buying private islands or $100 million yachts. Instead, he's invested in things that actually matter to him, like his own tequila brand, Código 1530. Unlike some celebrity alcohol brands that are all about the marketing, George actually drinks this stuff. He was a fan of it long before he ever put his name on it, and when he did, it became a massive success. So, when you add it all up, album sales, touring, business ventures, and a lifetime of smart financial decisions, George Strait's net worth sits comfortably at around $300 million. Not bad for a guy who built his career on doing things his own way. With a net worth sitting at around $300 million, George Strait has had plenty of opportunities to invest in the finer things in life. But if you know anything about him, you know he's not the flashy type. He's not out here buying mansions in Beverly Hills or penthouses in New York. No, George Strait's heart and his real estate portfolio are firmly planted in Texas. For years, George and his wife, Norma, lived in an absolutely breathtaking custom-built mansion in San Antonio. And when I say breathtaking, I mean this place looked like something straight out of a Texas dream. Perched on a hilltop in the exclusive Dominion neighborhood, the home had massive windows overlooking the hill country, an infinity pool, and, because this is George Strait we're talking about, 14 fireplaces. Yes, 14. The entire house was designed by a renowned architect using hand-sculpted adobe, giving it that perfect mix of luxury and rustic charm. But in 2021, George decided it was time to say goodbye to his San Antonio palace. He put the house on the market for $8 million, and while the final selling price wasn't disclosed, you can bet it was a hefty sum. Now, if you're wondering where George Strait actually lives, the answer is where he's always felt at home, the ranch. He has a sprawling property near Cotulla, Texas, where he can escape the spotlight, ride horses, and fully embrace his cowboy lifestyle. If you ask him, that's where he truly feels at peace. And honestly, that sounds about right. After all, George Strait was never meant to be stuck inside some fancy mansion. He's a boots-on-the-ground, wide-open land kind of guy. On top of that, George has also dipped his boots into the real estate business. He was a co-owner of Tapatio Springs Hill Country Resort, a gorgeous golf and spa resort in Bourne, Texas. He helped revamp the place, turning it into a must-visit destination for anyone looking to experience Texas luxury with a side of country charm. At the end of the day, George Strait's approach to real estate is just like the man himself: timeless, understated, and 100% Texan. No flashy Hollywood mansions, no over-the-top purchases, just beautiful properties that reflect his love for the land and his deep Texas roots. After talking about George Strait's real estate, it only makes sense to take a look at what he drives. Because let's be honest, if you're the king of country, you're not rolling around in just any old car. And while George isn't the kind of guy to flex his wealth with a garage full of flashy supercars, he's definitely got some impressive wheels. Let's start with one of his most well-known rides, a 2012 Bentley Continental GTC. Yes, that's right, the cowboy has a Bentley convertible. And if you've ever seen this car, you know it's all about luxury and power, smooth lines, high-end craftsmanship, and a twin-turbo W12 engine under the hood. This thing is a statement. But in true George Strait fashion, it wasn't about showing off. He drove it, he enjoyed it, and when the time came, he put it up for sale in 2017. And because he's George Strait, he didn't just sell the car, he signed the owner's manual with a simple yet classic "Enjoy." Imagine buying a Bentley and getting George Strait's signature as a bonus. Now, while a Bentley might seem a little unexpected for a cowboy, let's not forget that George is still a Texas man through and through. And that means trucks. Over the years, he's been spotted in several Chevy Silverado 1500s and Ford F-1500s. No surprise there? These are the kind of trucks built for a man who spends his time on a ranch and actually uses his vehicles, instead of just parking them in a collection. And speaking of style, George also has an appreciation for classic American cars. One of the highlights of his collection? a 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. This thing is straight out of a golden age Hollywood movie. Massive tail fins, gleaming chrome, and an unmistakable vintage look. It's the kind of car that turns heads wherever it goes. And honestly, it's a perfect match for George. Timeless, stylish, and effortlessly cool. At the end of the day, George Strait's vehicles reflect exactly who he is. A mix of classic and modern, rugged and refined. That's a wrap on George Strait's incredible story. Now we want to hear from you. What surprised you the most? Drop a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, check out one of these on your screen now for more great celebrity stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.